up, my people? In this video, we're going to be talking about angle relationships. Now, there are several examples, so this video may be a little bit longer, but I'm going to make sure I get to everything. So you can fast forward, pause, rewind as needed. So let's jump right in and talk about these angles. So let's talk about these angle relationships. Here are 5 on the screen. And the first one I want to talk about are vertical angles. Vertical angles are created when you take 2 straight lines and then they make essentially V's all the way around. And then what happens is the angles that are opposite of them, like 1 and 2, those are vertical, which makes them congruent. And then like angles 3 and 4, those are also congruent. Okay, and we're going to see a couple of examples of that later. Now let's go over here to adjacent angles right over here. Adjacent angles simply means that you have 2 angles that are right next to each other. They don't necessarily have a measure unless it's been stated, but they are just directly next to each other. And then I'm going to go over here to the right where we talk about a linear pair. A linear pair is a set of adjacent angles. So you got 2 angles that are right next to each other, but they specifically add up to equal 180 degrees. You'll know you have a linear pair because when you add them together, they create a straight line, which is the key word in the word linear. So linear pair is 2 angles right next to each other and they make a straight line. So this angle 1 and 2 make a straight line. All right. Now let's go to complementary, supplementary angles. Now complementary angles, you have 2 angles that when you add those 2 angles together, you end up with making 90 degrees. So you add them together and you end up at 90 degrees. And one way to remember that is if you draw a capital C, actually we'll get to that in a minute. And then supplementary angles, they add to make 180. Do they have to be a linear pair to be supplementary? No. You can have 2 random angles that add up to be 180, and they will also be supplementary. Linear pair, they have to be right next to each other. But if you have any 2 angles that add up to be 180, they will be considered supplementary. And I mentioned that C a second ago, and supplementary is going to be an S. And if you can't remember which one is which, do this. Draw 1 straight line on the C, that makes a 9, as in 90. Draw 1 straight line on the S, that looks like an 8, as in 180. So that's how you can kind of help you remember the difference between complementary and supplementary angles. So let's keep going. Let's get to this page and let's see if we can name what some of these things are. We got 2 straight lines. And then we got the angles that are opposite of each other. And that is going to make these, so this line and this line. And we got the angles that make, they made 2 V's. And they're opposite of each other. Those are vertical angles, okay? Let's look at number 2. We're looking at relationship 1 and 2. Number 1 and 2 are right next to each other. So that already by default makes them adjacent angles. And because they make a 90-degree angle right here, that also makes them, which one is 90 degrees? Let's see. C, S. One of them's 90, the other one isn't. If I draw a straight line, that's a 9. If I draw a straight line, that's an 8. So that makes these 2 complementary because they make a 90-degree angle. Let's keep going. If I look at number 3, they are directly next to each other for sure. So that's going to make them adjacent. And then do they add up to be 180 degrees? Yes. That makes them supplementary. And because they're right next to each other and make 180 degrees, that makes them a linear pair. And then let's look at number 4. The 2 angles are right next to each other. We can't say for sure it's 90 degrees or not. So we can just call these adjacent. Okay. And then let's look at number 5. 1 and 2. So, well, 1 and 2 are definitely vertical angles because they are right across, right? Those are vertical. But if 2 is the same as this one, and this one is the same as that one, I can actually put 2 here, which then makes them complementary. And then finally, let's look at 1 and 2. Well, if this one is 90 degrees, that's going to make this one 90 degrees because they're on the same line. And with that being said, first off, they are across from each other. Yes, so that makes them vertical. And because this one is 90 and this one is 90, that also makes them supplementary. They are not a linear pair because they are not directly next to each other. All right, so let's get into some of the questions. Some of these are easy. Some of these are a little bit more challenging. So when I look at number 1, these are vertical angles, which means, and vertical angles are always congruent. So if this side is 112, that makes this other side 112. So x is equal to 112 degrees. That one was not that bad. Okay, and then let's look at number 2. This is a 90-degree angle, which means that whatever x is, and you add it to 68, it should be 90 degrees. And when you do that, you subtract 68. And you're going to get x is equal to 22 degrees. Okay? All right. Next one. There's how do I describe these two? They are a linear pair, which means that they total 180 degrees. So 124 plus your x should equal 180. I'm going to subtract 124 from both sides. And you get that your x is equal to 56 degrees. Okay, let's get into some more challenging ones. Ooh, we got a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so first things first. Let's do the easy ones. So we got to eventually figure out what x is. And because 43 and x are a linear pair, that means x plus 43 is going to be equal to 180. And then what has to happen after that is you got to subtract 43 from both sides. And you'll get that x is equal to 137. If x is 137 degrees, that by default means that z is 137 degrees. And because this angle here and this angle here are vertical, that means that y is equal to 43 degrees. Okay? All right. We are moving on. Let's change the color. All right. So we got to find x, we got to find y, we got to find z. All right. Well, if I know this is 72, but this is a linear pair, that means that x plus 72 is going to equal 180 degrees. And we'll do x plus 72 equals 180 degrees when I subtract 72 from both sides. I get that x is going to be equal to 108. So this one right here is 108. Well, if I have this line here, let's make this smaller. If I have this line and this line, that makes this angle and this angle, that makes them vertical. And we know that vertical angles are congruent. So that means by default, y is equal to 72 degrees. And then finally, we have to find what z is. And because right here, all of this makes 180 degrees. If this part over here is 90, that makes this remaining part right here also 90. So in other words, 72 plus this z piece is, so let's do that, 72 plus z equals 90. If I subtract 72 from both sides, you get that z is going to be equal to 18. So if I put on my answers, so z is equal to 18 degrees. Okay? And if, worst case scenario, if you add up every angle, so and this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one, they all should equal 360 degrees. You can do 360 minus everything, and you also get 18. All right, let's look at number 6. It says angles 1 and 2 are vertical angles. So we got to draw a picture about what that even means. Angle 1 and 2 are vertical. Let's draw this picture. We're going to call this angle 1. We're going to call that angle 2. If the measure of 2 is 105 degrees, what does that mean measure 1 is? 105 degrees, because vertical angles are always congruent. By the way, the symbol for congruent is that one, just a reminder. So the measurement of angle 1 is equal to 105 degrees. Let's go ahead and go over here to number 7. It says A and B are complementary. That means 90 degrees. Okay, so let's draw a picture. And we're going to call this one A, and then we're going to call this one B. The measurement of A is 42 degrees. What does that mean the measurement of B is? So what we have to do is we have to say B is going to be equal to 90 degrees minus 42. And you get that your B is equal to 48. Okay? All right, we're moving right along. Again, if you have any questions, you can stop the video, rewind it, or you can come see me in class. Oh, it says angles P and Q are supplementary. Supplementary, I'm going to draw a straight line. Oh, that makes it 8. So that means P and Q make 180 degrees. Let's draw this picture over here. And Q is 64 degrees. Hold on, let me label them first. Oops, I didn't mean to erase that. And yes, my lines are perfectly straight in case you're wondering. P is here, Q is here, and then it says that Q is 64 degrees, and P is, we don't know. So we got to figure out what P is. So we got to do, P is going to be equal to the 180 minus 64. And you would get equals 116 degrees. If you think it's easier, you can say 64 as an alternative. You can say 64 plus P equals 180. Subtract 64. And you get P is equal to 116. But if you notice right here that this step and this step right here are the same. It's the same line. So it doesn't matter which one you do, okay? All right, so now we're going to be using, let me do number 9 first. Come on. Hold on, it's giving me some difficulty. There we go. Number 9. It says, measurements of angle 1 and 2 form a linear pair. Let's change the color. Let's see let's do this one. All right. They form a linear pair, which means that it's something like this because the two angles end up making a straight line. Let's do angle 1 here and angle 2 there. And it says the measurement angle 1 is 113. We have to find the measurement of angle 2. We don't know what that one is, but I do know if I do 113 plus angle 2, which I'm going to call angle 2x for the moment, should equal 180 when I subtract 113 from both sides. I get that x is equal to 67. So the measurement of angle 2 is 67 degrees. Okay.